Well, a very good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, however we want to do it, to everyone who's listening. I'm really excited this morning because I am recording this in the morning. It's a Thursday, and I have on the call with me one of my very favourite people whose expertise I have benefit from in numerous occasions. On numerous occasions, should I say. Um, Katie, how you doing?
I'm good, thank you. I never know what to say to these nice introductions. Thanks. Thanks for having me.
My absolute pleasure. Thanks is good enough, I'm here to big you up. I am a champion of you. And yeah, so we've known each other for a bit. It feels like longer, but it's not really that long. But it's long enough. For people who don't know you, who are you? And what do you do?
Okay, hello. My name's Katie Skelton. I sound like I'm on blind date or something now. What's your name? Where'd you come from?
Where'd you come
I'm
from?
in Dorset, and I'm an email marketing trainer. So in short, I help business owners make more money using email and connect with people. It's not just about the money, but that does help because if we're running businesses, we're not just doing it to make a load of friends. It's a nice byproduct, but
That in itself is a very big thread that we could pull on. We're not in business just to make a whole bunch of friends. Um, but let's go down another path first. Why email?
good question. Because I was doing it for other people and for myself for a very long time, and I didn't even realise that it was something that I really loved. It was staring me in the face. So I started my business as a copywriter, and part of that was writing emails for people. But I never thought that specialising in email could be my thing, even though it was the thing that I loved doing the most. It was just staring me in the face. And then I can't remember how long ago it was now, but a while ago, someone said, why aren't you just teaching people to do email marketing? And I was like, oh yeah. So that's why, basically. Kind of like everything else in my life, I've kind of fell into it. But also it was inevitable as well, I think, now I look back.
You were inevitable. There we go.
Yeah, I am
That's it.
inevitable.
You are inevitable. That's awesome. I love that you see it as kind of osmosing into it. Just falling into it. The best stuff happens by accident, I guess, doesn't it?
Yeah, I've never really had a plan. I'd like to say that I've got a plan. I do feel like I've got a bit more of a plan these days, but I have never really thought, I never was at school thinking, oh, I want to be an email marketer or whatever else I've done in my life. It's just kind of happened. Opportunities come up. I think that sounds good, and then go for it and see what
Go
happens.
for it.
If it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. Change direction. Course correcting is a big thing in my life.
Awesome. We'll come to that one in a second. When did I guess because you are inherently creative. You have it running through you. I know this. Anyone who's seen your stuff on LinkedIn knows this. Anyone who subscribes to your email newsletter knows this. When did the journey begin? So what got you into copywriting in the first place?
Again, completely by accident. So I always loved writing. I remember always loving writing at school, and I still remember like a poem that I wrote when I was 9 or 10 that's still kind of ingrained in my head because I loved writing it so much, and so it's stuck. So it's always been a thing that I've loved doing. I've always been fascinated by words. My dad's really into writing, so that helps, and also he's really into nice pens. And so always having a nice pen was always a good way of inspiring yourself to write. I've got one here actually. Nice gel pen from Sainsbury's. Am I allowed to say Sainsbury's? Other supermarkets are available.
Other supermarkets are available. Also, other pen types and ink materials are available also.
Yeah, you can also choose to use a pencil or a keyboard if you would like. So yeah, anyway, writing. I always worked in sales jobs, really, of different different types for my entire career when I was employed, but I was always that person that they were like, oh, as you're here and you're doing the sales job, can you also do the marketing? Can you also do the social media? Can you just write this thing for us? So it was always something that I was kind of doing. Again, it was stuff that I was doing, but it wasn't actually my job. And then when I was made redundant, when I was on my second round of maternity leave, I was like, okay, this is the opportunity to start my own business. What do I know best? And writing was it, because I was a bid writer at the time. So I was writing big old chunky documents, very different to actual like sales copywriting or any kind of the copywriting I did afterwards. But it made sense because people knew me in the industry that I was working in. People knew me for my writing. So it was easy to get clients straight off the bat because I had a decent reputation with those people.
That's a big word. Reputation. That's a big one. I mean, how do you feel that's gotten you to where you are now? And I don't mean to bombard you with questions on this, but it feels very much in keeping with stories I've heard from others of late, that they have, for want of a better word, fallen into what they do. So, I mean, how does it feel to you, like, as a creative professional, that your reputation has been the guiding light?
I think that kind of reputation is just another word for the relationships you have with people, and everything I've always done has been based on the working relationships I have with anybody I'm working with, my clients, my colleagues, my bosses, whoever, people I'm managing. So it kind of makes sense that I lent into that. I think naturally, as soon as I was like, oh, okay, I'm in a bit of a hole here, what do I do? I've got a toddler and a 6-month-old baby. I could see into the future a bit. I was thinking, these children are going to go to school at some point, and then I'm going to have those limitations on my time and my energy. So there was a bit of me that was thinking, I need to plan for the future a bit, contrary to what I was saying before about not planning for the future. Apparently I was. So I just started that based on the fact that I had good relationships with people, and I knew that I could reach out to people and say, I'm doing this thing, are you interested in working with me? And as it happens, actually copywriting as a profession longer term wasn't for me, but it was a great starting point for everything that's come since.
Absolutely. I think there seems like there's some big acknowledgements there to the fact that you just very in tune with you in a moment.
Yeah, I had a conversation with someone else on another podcast recently, actually, who asked me, the core of this podcast was, what's your superpower? And mine was, I said it's resilience, but it was more this kind of deep knowing all the time that everything's going to be okay, and that there's always a solution to every issue, every problem that comes up. Like we're being turfed out of our house in just over a month, and I'm feeling really calm about it. And it's weird that I'm feeling really calm about the fact that we could potentially be homeless in 6 weeks' time, but there's always a solution. Like, and it's part of the creativity thing, I think. Like, creative thinking isn't just creating stuff, it's thinking of different ways of doing things and getting over problems. And so I've always had this deep kind of knowing, trust in myself that everything will be okay. And my parents gave that to me, because I remember making some big out of the ordinary decisions but compared with most of my friends when I was kind of 16, 17. So for context, I quit my A-levels and went and worked full-time in a record shop. Amazing decision. But as a parent, most parents would be like, what are you doing? My parents were like, if that's what you want to do, if that's what makes you happy, go and do it. And that kind of gave me this trust that, especially as it worked out, it gave me this trust that I can make decisions for myself and they will work out fine. So I owe them that. I owe that to them. That was a bad sentence, wasn't it?
No, I think that makes a whole lot of sense. And I big up to parents everywhere, who are able to put that level of trust in their young people, that, that they can, make a choice and probably not bugger things up on the way through.
Yeah, and actually, even if you do, then it's probably not going to be the end of the world. There is
No.
always going to be some way of unpicking it, changing direction, like doing something different. There's big decisions, but actually the big decisions that we have to make aren't so big that they're completely final and you can't make changes.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. In fact, very strongly, I would agree with that. Nothing is final. There's, you and I both know, human beings everywhere know there's only really one finality to what we do and who we are, because we are mortal beings.
Yeah.
There's only one end point. Thinking about that resilience and that knowing, like, how did you, or how do you, maybe cultivate it in yourself when things are a little bit on the tough side?
You'll be unsurprised to hear I wrote an email about this recently. um,
Go on, tell us all. Tell me the story.
no, I think how do I cultivate? I've forgotten what the question was, Tom. I'm sorry. I'm really tired.
That's okay. No, it's fine. We got excited. It's because you suddenly got really animated about email, and I think anyone watching this will see you suddenly get animated because you wrote an email about it.
I was like,
no.
those words came out of my fingers, and now I've forgotten the words because they're out of my fingers on a page somewhere.
And that right there is the magic of creativity. The question: when the going gets tough, knowing how resilient you can be, how do you cultivate that in you?
I think, again, remembering that everything is a phase, and like that's a phrase that you'll hear in parenting a lot as well, but it's true in running a business and just being alive, having a life. Like, everything's a phase, nothing lasts forever. So I've learned, the more these kind of roadblocks and challenges and hard times come up, and actually, in the grand scheme of things, I haven't really had that many hard times. Like, I'd love to tell you that I've got this kind of rags to riches story where I was in the gutter and I've dragged myself out, but it's never really been that bad. So I don't have one of those kind of big moments, those kind of aha moments where I turned everything around. But the more little kind of challenges you overcome, or the more challenges I overcome, the more I know, the more tools I've got in my toolbox to deal with future stuff, and the more I know I can. And those two things together, like having done it in the past and knowing like what I've done in the past to get over those challenges before, and also having done it in the past and knowing that it's possible to get over hurdles like income dips or unwell children or unwell parents or whatever the challenge is, you just kind of, like, in my brain, I'm just like, well, there's no point in worrying about the thing that is happening. You either do something about the thing, or, well, you have to do something about the thing. I guess it depends what the thing is. That felt like a bit of a ramble, but I think it's more just kind of, again, going back to that kind of knowing that I can and I will again.
Oh, I like that. I can and I will again.
I know, I'm going to write that down. It's a good hook.
Absolutely. There's two sides to that. I wonder if I could get your take on this. There's responsiveness, which is kind of what you just described, but there's also reactiveness. And even though we have the tools and the methods, and we've lived it and we've done it and we can come out the other side, reactiveness doesn't often let us do that and acknowledge that stuff, because we're in the moment just going, shit, this is bad, oh no, panic. How do you get through that?
I think just allowing the reaction to happen a bit. Yes, those panic feelings are going to happen. Although, like, going back to this house move situation, so we're renting at the moment. We've got to move out of our house. But when we were told that we had to move out, I was still like, yeah. It wasn't like a oh shit moment. But yeah, I think it's when there are those moments of panic and oh no, what are we going to do? It's just a matter of kind of letting it happen and letting it pass and trusting that it will, And then once it does, the action comes, kind of the actual doing the stuff that needs to be done in order to resolve or get through the situation. It's a very good question. I don't really know if I have a very specific answer for it. So it's kind of like copywriting. People keep asking me to teach them copywriting, and I'm like, I'm not sure I actually can. I can't explain to you how I do a thing, because it comes naturally, and it's the same as this dealing with kind of panicky situations. I'm not sure I really can explain exactly how that process happens in my brain. It feels like it's a subconscious thing.
You have ninja skills. It's muscle. It's well. This is the thing, right? So in the creative space, people used to talk a lot about rock stars and ninjas and unicorns and all those sort of curious mythical beings. Not that ninjas and rock stars are mythical beings, but you know. But I think as conceptually, the kind of the muscle memory and the discipline you develop as you live a life and as you develop yourself as a professional, you don't think about how to do stuff, you just do stuff. Like, one of your children is poorly. You and I both know this, that when one of our separate children, not our children, when our separate children are poorly, you just get on with it. You know where the Calpol is, you know where the thermometer is, you probably know where the necessary buckets, bowls and mops are, you know, and you just get on with it. And the same goes for business stuff as well, doesn't it? You get a dip in your client spell, or you send an email that ends up triggering an entire sequence of autoresponders to every single person on your news mail list. Not that I have done that recently. I did that recently. But you just get on with it. You go, nah. Right, carry on.
Yeah.
Which leads me on to a thought about course correction, because you mentioned it before. I'm a firm believer in it as well. How does that show up for you?
I do it with my clients quite a lot. So a lot of the work that I do with people is working out what works for them and for their audience, checking in at what's working and what's not working, and then course correcting or tweaking or doubling down on what's working and taking away, stripping out what isn't working. So in terms of that work, that feels like, because it's almost practical stuff, it's easy to like identify what's working, change it, and identify what's not working, change it. In life, I think again that's more of a gradual thing, although that said, there are times where there's this. So an example is my email newsletter. I'm going to keep talking about emails obviously, but it's a good example, because in January this year I was sending a weekly email, and I sent an email to all of my subscribers saying, I'm thinking of writing a daily email, what do you think? And about 30 people replied going, absolutely not, I wouldn't read it, I'd unsubscribe. And I went, oh no, I'm scared, I'm not going to do that then. And then it just kept eating at me for nearly 3 months. Every day I was thinking, really want to do it. And I was holding off, because so many people who have been on my list for years and years, and who I saw as like fans, and like that's the wrong word, but like loyal people who had interacted with my emails over the last 3 years, had said that they would disappear into the ether if I dared to send them a daily email. But then it got like the internal discomfort with staying with the thing that I was doing got so big that I just had to make the change anyway. So I switched to daily, and a few people, like 18 people, unsubscribed. So funny, 30 people replied saying they wouldn't read, and only 18 unsubscribed when I said I was going to switch to daily. And now some of the people who said they wouldn't read are now replying saying, I love your daily emails more than I like the weekly ones. So again, it's I like a trusting your gut thing. And even if lots of people are saying it's not the right thing for you, it might still be the right thing for you, because it has absolutely been the right thing for me. So sometimes listening to yourself more than listening to other people is a good way of tapping into that course correcting and even when it feels like a bit of a big thing to decide on. It's up to you. It's particularly when it comes to business. It's your business, your rules. You can do what you like. You can experiment however you like.
100% that. You got there before me as well, because I was going to tie that idea of course correction very neatly into the daily emails. Because, and I get it, I'm all for that as well. You know, when I work with clients and look at how they're running business and how they're showing up, it's not ever a case of, well, here's your end goal, this is all the stuff we're going to do to get there, now go and do it. It's, okay, what's the one thing we could move now to help you make a decision, take an action, not take an action? But when it comes to things like the dailies, that almost feels a bit more positively destructive from what you had before.
Yeah, it was. I got too comfortable just doing the same thing week in, week out. It was too easy. It got too easy. It got too comfortable. It got too formulaic. And I'm all for telling people what to expect, specifically thinking about emails here, but telling people what to expect, telling them when they're going to get it, and then week in, week out, people would say, if I forgot to send an email on a Monday morning, which happened once, people replied to me saying, where is your email? Because they were used to getting it on a Monday morning. And but it got too easy, and it got to the point where I didn't have any kind of, it didn't feel creative anymore. It just felt like the thing that I did, and I needed the thing that I did to feel like a bit of a challenge for me. And to expect, and also to experiment, so I can have new things to teach my clients. Like, if I'm not learning, if I'm not pushing myself out of my comfort zone, where do I go next with the things that I'm teaching people? Like, I get to the limit of my knowledge, and then there's nowhere else I can go. So I'm giving myself somewhere else to go with my clients as well, which is helpful because it's given me a whole other arm of my business now, that's kind of slowly, not even growing yet, but just being formulated in my brain, that is going to be a future part of it. So that's helpful as well. And all it took was 5xing my workload, as they'd say on LinkedIn.
Oh, that gives me the ick, all kinds. But I mean, you and I have spoken about this in the past, so, you know, we'll let people in on the conversation. But I mean, has it really quintupled your workload?
No, because the weekly email was, if people listening to this are creative people, they will resonate with this. I think when something becomes formulaic, it doesn't feel fun anymore, which means that it doesn't feel creative anymore, which means it's harder, because if you're not in that kind of creative flow, then it feels hard to get the thing out. And it was starting to feel hard to get the weekly email out because it had got a bit boring in my head. People were still saying they liked it, but the switch to daily has just meant that I've got that kind of spark back for it. I've got so many more opportunities to have conversations with people. I've got so many more opportunities to sell stuff, which is helpful. Especially being at I know we talk about this kind of thing all the time, but being at the perils of the LinkedIn gods, or the mercy of the LinkedIn gods or the social media gods, and not actually knowing who in our audience is seeing anything at any given time, actually having that extra opportunity to connect with people makes me excited. So no, it's not 5 times the work at all. It's probably twice the work at most. And I've streamlined the whole process because I'm doing it every day as well. So that helps too.
Do you write them off the bat, or are you, as they say, batching them up?
No, I tend to be quite... I do sometimes, if I know there's school holidays coming up or something, I'll write a few in advance. But I'm finding that writing them in the moment and them being quite relevant to what's going on in my life now makes it easier to write as well. So I'll just reflect on something that has happened in the day. I might have some kind of nod to this conversation in tomorrow's email, and it's much easier to spark an idea off of something that's happened now than it is to trawl through my bank of ideas and write 5 emails. I do it sometimes, but I am actually finding it easier at the moment to not batch stuff and just write it like the day before, the night before even.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
That comes back to that whole responsiveness thing, doesn't it? You're responding to something that's gone on, you reflect on it, and then you share it.
Yeah,
You know?
exactly. And if I've got 2 ideas, I might write 2, but I don't. Time blocking has never worked for me anyway. I can't block out 2 hours for content creation, because what if I don't feel like doing that at that point? Like, there's no point in sitting down and forcing yourself. Sometimes you want to go for a walk, or sometimes you want to do a bit of admin, or so time blocking doesn't work for me. For that reason, it doesn't work with my creativity. So I either have to be right up against a deadline to get something done, or I have to feel like doing it. And if one of those 2 things isn't happening, then I'm not going to do it.
That's interesting. Because there's so many different schools of thought on that. But again, you're one of the most in tune people that I know. Like, it just, you get yourself, and that is incredible. Like, because some businessy types, coaches and the whatnot, say, oh, you show up every day and you train yourself to do the thing at this time, and it's like, yeah, it's great, but what if it doesn't work for me? And it's that what if that keeps us going.
Yeah, exactly. And it's actually only been a really recent discovery that I am quite in tune with. It's only because other people have pointed it out to me that they think that is a thing about me, that I've now started saying, oh, that's a thing about me, because people have said to me, that isn't like a standard thing, that you are completely in tune with what you want, how you feel. I mean, making it sound like I've got everything sewn up. I absolutely haven't.
I get it. Other people will get it as well. Anyone watching or listening to this will get it. Like, I have friends who are like Dalai Lama Zen with themselves, and they can just rock up, do a thing, go, and then do another thing, and then I've got some others. Sorry if you're listening to this, and they're a hot mess most of the time. But that's just who they are and how they conduct themselves, and they still get on with it. And it's fine, you do you. Something interesting you said about the time blocking, though, because I know you do a little thing once a month where you do block time.
Oh,
and it's something that I have adopted from you that I now do once a month as well, and that's the sofa day.
Oh yeah, oh yes. I was supposed to have one yesterday, and I didn't have it, so that was bad. Broke my own rule. But yeah, so basically in November last year was a bit of a journey of discovery for me in my business, and working out what works and what doesn't work, and it got very, very full on towards the end of the year, and it was great because at the beginning of the year I had no clients and I pretty much had no business, so it was a complete turnaround from kind of one end of the spectrum to the other. However, towards the end of November last year, I got to the point where I was like, I cannot go anymore. I can't do anything. I need to cancel everything and take a day off. And it was a pain in the arse because I had about 8 calls booked in that day as well. So I had to unpick everything. Luckily, I had very, very understanding clients who just agreed to move stuff. And I just sat on the sofa and watched Netflix. Other streaming services are available all day. And it was what I needed. And then from that moment onwards, I booked in one every month for the rest of the year, for the rest of this year. So I've got one full day to do nothing. And it's not even you're not allowed to do any work day. If I want, I can go in, like if I feel like it, I can go and do a bit of work. But it's, if I need it, I've got that space. So I generally don't kind of sit in this same place. I will work from the sofa, or I'll go and have a coffee somewhere. I'll take my laptop maybe. But it's it's all about kind of just changing the pace a bit and resting, or prioritizing rest over everything else. And that doesn't mean banning myself from looking at LinkedIn, because actually that doesn't really work for me. And I get energy from interacting with people on social media and replying to my emails and stuff. So that would be counterproductive, I think. But just being able to have that space and not have any kind of delivery type work to do is nice. And it's nice to know it's booked in advance, so nothing can monopolise that time, even though it did yesterday. But that was for a photo shoot, so that was okay.
That's fair.
It was
And
fun.
yes.
And we were on the beach, so...
I know, I got beach envy. I mean, I'm not really a beachy type person, but just knowing it's there would be nice. You know.
Yeah, it is nice knowing it's there. It's but knowing it's there and living close means that you don't take advantage of it like you would if you came on holiday here, and then you'd spend every day on the beach because you know you've only got a week. So yeah, there's pros and cons. But I currently live 5 minutes walk from the beach, and I've seen a beach once in the last 2 weeks. So
Well, that sounds like a sofa day plan to me.
yes, beach day.
Beach day. Going to shoot off left field slightly here.
Ooh.
Only slightly. And it's a question that I want to just field with you, and it's not like maybe directly a business related thing. So, communication, right? We're in an age where there's so many different ways to communicate with people. And, you know, there's WhatsApps and Telegrams and all those sorts of things, and there's DMs and the streaming and all that jazz. Where do you think email's place is in this ridiculously over-connected space that we're in at the moment?
That's a really great question. My initial instinct is to think that it's to just solidify the more human stuff. So, yes. So if we're talking about email marketing, as in broadcasting to a group of people, there we go, broadcasting to a group of Oh, you just
Keep
did a
going.
little snort as well.
Broadcasting to purples. Keep going. You're good. Keep going.
Smurfs. If we're thinking about email marketing being broadcasting to a group of people en masse in one direction, I'm not really a fan of that as a concept, because it just feels like you're kind of standing up on stage and shouting at a load of people, whether they want to listen or not. Well, I mean, they've turned up to whatever the show is, but they might want to leave, and you've... So it's not so much that for me. I like it for starting one-on-one, two-way conversations with individual people and making plans to have other, like, actual real life human contact. I discovered at the end of beginning of this year, that I really like running in-person events. So I ran one, and I'm like, oh, okay, this has to happen 3 times, 4 times a year now, because it brought me such energy. And so using it to facilitate the stuff that really does matter, which I think is closer connection, closer relationships with people, is my bag. It's not everyone's bag. Sometimes it's collecting 20,000 followers or 20,000 subscribers and selling them as much as you possibly can and never having any interaction with them. Like I subscribed to this email list a while back, a guy on LinkedIn who I really, really admired. And I subscribed to his email list, and his first email was just an engagement question. So you will have had this conversation with me where your first email, your like welcome email, has some kind of question in it that inspires people or encourages people to reply. A, to start that two-way conversation, but B, to make sure that it delivers into their inbox in future. So it serves, in my eyes, it serves a double purpose. In this guy's eyes, it only served the singular purpose of increasing deliverability. So I replied to his engagement question, never heard anything back. And I thought, don't ask me a question and then get me to answer and then not reply to my answer. I realise he's running a much bigger, much kind of larger scale business than I am. But I kind of think if you're going to ask me a question, then have someone in your inbox replying. I don't even care if it's not you. I just want you to interact. Otherwise, don't ask the question. Find some other way of getting me to improve your deliverability, because I just unsubscribed and I was really sad because I really like what he does and I kind of really wanted to start that conversation. There might have been, I probably would have bought something from him at some point, but I mean, I'm probably a little bit more militant about this stuff than others, because I care a lot about treating humans as humans and not just as numbers. So yeah, that annoyed me.
I felt that.
It's lucky you're not here.
Well, one day, you never know. I think there's definitely a very personal thing about email. Even as a newsletter, I'm also very militant about what I let into my email inbox. I don't go and subscribe to everyone's newsletter just because they've got one and they're a friend. Partly because I don't want to clog up their mailing list when I'm definitely not going to buy anything from them. But also, it's what you bring, it's what you take in as well, and it's one of the most important things that you could ever give away as well is your email address. And I don't think people realise this. If somebody has gifted you their email address, I don't want to make it sound too heavy, but it feels like there's a responsibility to actually deliver something that's not crap. Now, you taught me this, is that, people are expecting you to sell to them at some point because you are a business. You're not just there to engage and make friends, and it's okay to do that. But there is a respect that comes with it.
Yeah, definitely. And that's actually something that sparked something that I used to do on my sign-up forms for my lead magnets, and I've forgotten to do for the last couple, but I used to write a lead magnet, a free resource that you give people in exchange for their email address. And I used to write that it was free, but then underneath, in a little bit of small print, I wrote something along the lines of, I can't copyright out loud like I can out of my fingers, so this is not going to be exactly as it was written. But I wrote something along the lines of, I'm using the word free here because you don't have to pay for it, but I do understand that giving me your email address is still you giving me something in return for the thing I'm giving to you, and I promise that I will be respectful with the thing that you're giving me, and I will not come and spam your inbox every day. I mean, I do spam people's inboxes every day now, but they do willingly sign up for it, and it's not spam.
No, it's not spam. 100. Let's just caveat that. No, it is 100% not spam, and I would say 4 times out of 5, I find something incredibly resonant in what you write.
That's good. The 5th time, you're like, oh God, it's her again.
Well, the 5th time is generally my I don't open my email day, so it's fine. That's a very important thing that I think people can take away. Acknowledging the respect of the information that somebody gives you, just because it is a free, quote unquote, thing, does not mean there's no transactional cost.
Yeah, exactly.
That's quite a weighty point to finish on, so I'm not going to finish there. Right, I know something about you. It's a really good thing. You love picking apart hip-hop lyrics. Okay, I know this, and so I'm going to go there as the kind of the ending part of this. So, you went and worked in a record shop when you were younger, sacked off the A-levels, and did the thing. Where did the love of hip-hop lyricism come from?
I think it's not even necessarily hip-hop lyricism on its own. Just good lyricists really get me fired up. And I remember sitting in my bedroom when I was a child, handwriting the lyrics to the songs that I really loved out so I could learn them, because writing something out on paper by hand helped me memorize it. It was kind of like my A-level revision that I never did because I was working in a record shop. So I just did that. But something really interesting that I've learnt recently that I didn't even know was a thing, and I'm sure there's probably a million copywriters out there going, how the hell do you not know this? But there's a thing called copywork in copywriting, where you basically take really famous adverts or sales letters or famous copy that has sold and been really successful in the past, and you write it out by hand to get the, like, it's not muscle memory, but to like ingrain the skill of amazing copywriting into your brain. And I just wonder whether the like writing out the hip hop lyrics when I was 14, 15, 16 has in some way led to me being a writer for a living. Like, I admire really good writing, but I've never really been into kind of literature. It's all been around kind of clever lyricism and like really hard hitting words and stories in songs, rather than like stories in books and like the traditional way of that you think about writing. And that literally occurred to me in the car yesterday morning when I was listening to a song going, oh my God, that bit's so clever. I think I was listening to Jurassic 5 or something. And I was like, oh my God, that bit's so good. And I thought, this is where it's come from. Like, this is like, I've always had a like really deep appreciation for being able to write kind of cleverly worded, nicely flowing writing, but not fiction songs.
I appreciate that on a multitude of levels. I think the idea of taking somebody else's words and turning them into your own does give you a massive appreciation for, cadence and the craft of where you can see like rhyming couplets and, I don't know the the correct terms for things, but like, extended rhyming passages where the hooks start in different places, where lines break. When you see poetry written out and you can then, when you read it and you can see why it works written down.
Yeah,
the same goes for good lyrics. You can see, when you get them on Spotify and they're just scrolling along, it doesn't flow as the lyric does. But when you've got it written down, you've got it in front of you, you can see how the line breaks. You can see where the inflection happens. You can see where, emphasis is placed. And it all just makes more sense, doesn't it?
It does. And it's just, I kind of love that maybe that's what's brought me where I am, because I still love dropping the kids off at school and then cranking something up to belt out on the way home. You should see me getting jiggy with it, honestly. I wouldn't count that as the usual hip hop that I would listen to. However, I am a big fan of that on a dance floor, and just kind of knowing that one day 12, 13-year-old me wrote all the lyrics out, so now it's ingrained in my head forever. So sometimes I'm going to belt it out.
100%. You respect where you came from.
I didn't really come from the same place as Will Smith, though, did I?
Well, no, but now look at it. Look at him. He's up there clobbering Chris Rock on Oscar's stage. Too soon?
No,
not too soon. It's fine. That is eye-opening, and again, something that I think people can definitely take away is that practice your craft in ways that make sense to you.
Yeah, it doesn't always have to be the linear route or the route that everybody else takes.
Yeah. Well, Here's a great big salute to squiggly paths and put my teeth in, non-linearity.
Yes, that.
There we go. I'm keeping that in, just so you know.
Do it. A bit.
Flubs and all. For people who want to come and work with you, Katie, because they really bloody should, where can they find you? How do they get in touch? What do they need to do to start that conversation?
Okay, so probably the quickest and easiest way of finding me is searching for Katie Skelton on LinkedIn. Or if you fancy typing out a nice URL, my email sign up is littlegreenduck.co.uk/email.
Thank you so much for hanging out, sharing some stories, and just imparting a little wisdom on a Thursday morning. I appreciate it. I appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me.